What is this place?
Well, damn, you made it to the spot. This is your safe and encouraging place where we are getting down with our healing journey. So if you come from trauma, if you come from domestic violence, if you come from sexual assault and you're listening, that means you are a survivor. And together we get to grow. This is where we ask real questions like, why does this journey feel so damn endless? And more importantly, how do we begin to actually heal? This spot is also for the fellas who are tired of all the toxic BS that is out there and who are ready to find out what the hell real masculinity looks like. And yes, we will also address the most important question on everybody's mind.
Dude, what's that on your face?
So please join me, David Torres, on this path where we stop blaming, where we start healing, and where we start getting answers. This is Walk With Me. Spoiler alert, it's a birthmark. It's just a damn birthmark. Welcome back to Walk With Me. Today is going to be a little different because today I'm not necessarily here to preach or teach. I think I'm sort of here to think out loud. This episode and the idea of it kind of came last minute, sort of. I decided to put this in lieu of the next episode I had scheduled, just because I felt so strongly about it. And some things happened this week that really had me thinking about this subject. And the subject, or the title, if you will, is the difference between authenticity and familiarity. And it was such a powerful hit. You see things, you hear things, you get messages, or somebody says something, and it really gets your mind going sometimes. And I've really come to terms with the fact that I really want to chronicle some of these things, because I think the everyday experience that I have may be helpful to some people who may have had or may be having similar experiences. And I think it's good to talk through some of the things that happen during the healing process, regardless of when that occurs, and regardless of where you are at in your healing process. I want to invite you into a question I've kind of been wrestling with myself, a question that quite honestly surprised me, that kind of gut punched me, if you will. This past week, and to be more specific, just a couple days ago, a very, very good friend of mine sent me a text. And if I'm being honest, it hit me much harder than I expected it to as I was reading it. Now, for those of you who don't know, and the only way you wouldn't know is if you listen to this podcast audio only and you haven't seen any videos, I have a birthmark that covers a portion of my face. And I've talked about it before. I'm not hiding. I never hide it. I've never hidden it or tried to hide it. But for a very long time growing up, it was a source. And to be perfectly honest with you, it was a big source of my insecurity, a big one. I don't carry that insecurity the way I used to, not even close. In many ways, I've actually come to appreciate it. It's become part of my story. It's become part of my journey. And it's actually a big reason why I become the man that I have. At least that's what I have ascertained, because it's a physical part of me that I came to realize was unchangeable. And through time, I didn't want to change it. But my very good friend challenged me. And it isn't the first time she's done so. But it was very interesting to hear again. She said to me, basically what she said to me is, you got to shave. You got to take your beard out. She wants me to rock the birthmark. She wants me to go, in her words, go full authentic And again, at first I laughed. It was just like her way of showing me, different ways or different avenues to really get my message across to people. And like I said, I laughed at first, and then of course I got annoyed because it's something that I had not done in decades, you know. Not for any other reason, but that's just what my style was. A little bit of stub. This is probably the way you see it today is the longest it's been in months, years, maybe. And then after that, those first two initial reactions, I started thinking about it, and that's usually when I know something is worth exploring, if it sticks around. If my initial reaction doesn't satisfy my view of a question or of a thought, if it continues in my head, the process of considering something or wanting to look into something more, you know, uh, when it does that, it's to me, it's worth exploring because sometimes the things that may challenge us aren't right, but they do reveal something that I have come to learn are worth investigating. So we're going to talk about today familiar versus authentic. And I know one of the things I've been wondering lately that was really sparked with this comment or suggestion my friend made was how do we know the difference between something that is authentically us and something that has simply been with us for so long that it just feels like us. It's who we are. So that's a different question. And honestly, it got me uncomfortable. And I always preach to you guys, learn to be uncomfortable. Something I have on my board over here is I like reading it every day, and it's be comfy with being uncomfy. And so I preach this, and so when something in my life happens where my uncomfortability radar goes up, you know, I tend to get curious about it. Listen, I've had this beard for over 30 years. 30 years. Okay. And at some point, some things stop feeling like a choice. They start feeling like just a part of your identity. But the question I'm asking today is it? Is it really part of your identity or is it just familiar? So familiar and authentic are not always the same thing. We've got to kind of sit with that for a second because I know that's going a little deep but it but it's a question worth asking. And before anybody thinks this episode is about facial hair or my birthmark, it's not. The beard is a metaphor. And because all of us have things that we've carried for years, whether it's a role or habits, beliefs, defenses, identities. Maybe you're the strong one. Maybe you're the funny one. Maybe you're the fixer, the caretaker. Maybe, fellas, you're the tough guy. Maybe you're the people pleaser or the overachiever, the one who never asks for help. I can do it all on my own. But eventually, you stop asking, is this who I am? Because it becomes, this is who I've always been. Some identities began as protection. Then they turn into a prison, if you will. One of the things that we know about identity is that our brains love consistency. It's true. We become attached to familiar versions of ourselves, of who we believe we are, even when those versions really no longer serve us. Because what we've come to learn, or what I hope I have opened your mind to, is that certainty feels safe. Growth often asks us to leave certainty behind or comfortability. And that shit's scary. It's why this whole process of healing is so difficult, especially at times when you're at your lowest or you're feeling your lowest or something is triggered. But what if nothing changes? Here's the interesting part. Maybe I shave, maybe I don't. Honestly, it's not the point. The point is the question, the willingness to ask it, the willingness to examine it, the willingness to be curious about me or about ourselves. Because authenticity isn't, I changed. Authenticity is like, I was willing to find out. That's true curiosity. Authenticity doesn't necessarily require change, but it does require honesty. And that's where it challenged me. So here's my challenge in this sort of shorter but very truthful episode. My challenge, and don't get it twisted, every time I do a challenge each week, I do it with you, but this time I want to be really intentional about this and intentional about you knowing that this is also my challenge, is to ask ourselves, what part of our identity have we stopped questioning? Not because it's wrong, because it's familiar. And then ask yourself, if I were to meet myself today, would I choose this again? Would I still be the person who I am today, dressed the way I am, have a beard the way I am, act a certain way towards certain things? That's a powerful question. And that's something that I want to do with you this week. I also want to have a sort of different kind of conversation about our fashion tie-in, because I do want to bring fashion into this. One of the reasons I love style is because style is really about identity being made visible. And something fascinating happens when people begin healing. Their style changes, not because somebody told them to, but because they're changing. Some people become bolder. Some people become simpler. Some people become softer. Some people way more expressive than ever before. And overall, we all try to become more intentional. But the goal isn't necessarily reinvention. That's what I want to make clear today. The goal is alignment. Because when we go through trauma, when we go through something that makes us really question who we are, we start to unalign with who we actually are. Because we're so focused on who we think we need to be for the situation that we're in. Signature style isn't, look who I'm pretending to be. Okay? And don't let anyone ever tell you that it is. Signature style is, this actually feels like me. I feel no pressure in this. I feel wonderful in this. And maybe the real question here is not whether I have a beard, not whether I shave, not whether people approve or disapprove, but whether the person I'm looking at in the mirror every morning feels aligned with the person I'm becoming. And honestly, that's a question all of us should probably ask more often. The older I get, the less interested I am in impressing people. And the more interested I am getting in understanding and impressing myself. It's a part of the process that I feel has really grabbed a hold of me, especially in the last 5 years. How are you better today than you were yesterday? I'm becoming obsessed with that because what I've come to realize is the better I get, and I say better, the more I learn about who I am, the better I feel every morning when I wake up, every day that I'm at work, every afternoon that I'm with my family, every weekend that I'm with my friends or family. When I have weeks where I don't feel as productive or I don't feel as I am working on myself as much, I realize how shitty I feel by the end of that week. And it comes off, it exudes. Healing isn't just recovering from what happened to us, my friends. It's discovering who remains when the survival strategies are no longer necessary. And by not necessary is that you don't necessarily have to try as hard to produce those strategies, to actually do those strategies. I want to bring this home. And again, I know this is a shorter episode than usual, but it was on my mind and it was important. And here's why. Today wasn't really about a beard or my birthmark. It was about identity. It was about authenticity. It was about asking yourself difficult questions. When I was posed that question, it really got me thinking. Because I'll be perfectly honest with you, I don't think that I've had facial hair for as long as I've had it to hide behind something. First of all, if I did, it's not doing a great job. You know, maybe it lessens the reaction I remember getting as a kid when I didn't have facial hair or when I was in the military and couldn't have facial hair. But it truly challenged me to think on whether this was authenticity or it was just something I became familiar with. And when I couldn't truly come to an answer that I felt 100% confident in, I was like, we've got to talk about this. So before we finish here, I am going to test it. I'm going to test my theory for you. And I want you to be here with me because I think it's important for you to understand that I'm not doing this for any other reason than to prove to myself, not to you, and not to anybody who watches or listens that doesn't care, but to me, because it's an important question. And it has nothing to do with the beard or the birthmark itself. It's the question, what about us have we considered authentic about ourselves that may very well be just familiar? And I'm confident I'll get the answer to it. So what I'm going to do now is, you know what? I want you to come with me. We're going to switch cameras here and I want you to come on this journey with me. And if you're listening to the audio only, take a minute and rewatch this part on YouTube. We're going to go now. You know what's funny? When I started thinking about doing this, my first thought wasn't, what will I look like? It was, what will people say? And honestly, that's exactly why I'm doing it. Because if there's one thing I've learned on this journey, it's that we give far too much power to people who have done absolutely nothing to earn it. People we've never met. People we'll never meet. People whose opinions somehow end up carrying more weight than our own. And that's a dangerous way to live. One of the greatest obstacles to growth isn't failure. It's fear of judgment, fear of looking different, fear of standing out, fear of being misunderstood, fear of letting people see who we really are. I spent most of my life with this fucking birthmark. As a kid, it was one of my biggest insecurities. It shaped how I saw myself. It shaped how I moved through the world. And over time, I've come to see it differently. Not as something that happened to me, but as part of a story that made me who I am. And yet, when a friend challenged me to shave my beard, I found myself asking a question I wasn't expecting. If I truly believe in authenticity, if I truly believe in self-acceptance, if I truly believe in showing up as yourself, then am I willing to test that belief? Not for you, for me. The good, the bad, that I'm still okay with the man in the mirror. That's what this is about. And maybe that's the lesson. Maybe authenticity isn't about changing who you are. Maybe it's about becoming comfortable enough to stop hiding from who you are. So today this beard comes off. Not because I hate it, not because I think I look better without it, not because somebody told me to, but because growth sometimes asks us difficult questions. And I never want to become so attached to an identity, a habit, a look, or a story that I'm unwilling to examine it. So here I am. No performance, no filter, no hiding. Just me. Same guy I've always been. Still growing, still healing, still learning, still becoming. And maybe, just maybe, that's what authenticity really looks like. Not perfection, just the willingness to be seen. Because sometimes growth doesn't begin with answers. Sometimes growth begins with curiosity, with courage, with being willing to look at something you've accepted for years and ask, is this truly me? Or is it just simply familiar? And maybe the answer surprises you. And maybe it doesn't. But either way, you learn something. And that's the point. And progress is the point. Until then, take care of yourself, please. And I'll see you on the path. Man, my wife is gonna fucking kill me. Hey y'all, thanks for walking with me today. If something in this episode resonated with you, you can find resources, support organizations, and additional information at walkwithmepod.com. Whether you're seeking help for yourself or someone you care about, those resources are there for you. You can also connect with me on social media. All of the links are in the show notes and on the website. I always welcome your reflections, questions, and stories. And with your permission, some may even help guide future episodes as this community continues to grow. If you believe in what we're building here, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast. It truly helps this message reach more people who may need it. And if someone came in mind while you were listening today, consider sharing this episode with them. Sometimes a single conversation can open the door to healing. Until next time, keep moving forward, one step at a time. Psst, this part is super important, my friends. I want to be very clear about something. I am not a licensed therapist, a counselor, a psychologist, or a medical professional. The content shared on Walk With Me is based on personal experience, research, education, and lived perspective, not professional or clinical advice. This podcast is intended for educational, reflective, and community-based conversation only. It is not a substitute for professional mental health care, medical treatment, legal advice, or crisis intervention. If you are in immediate danger, experiencing a crisis, or need professional support, please contact emergency services or a licensed mental health professional or a trusted support organization right away. Resources and hotlines are listed in the show notes and on walkwithmepod.com. Listening to or participating in this podcast does not establish my therapeutic, professional, or client relationship between you and I. My goal here is to open conversations, challenge harmful patterns, and offer insight and hope. But your safety, healing, and care deserve qualified, professional support when needed. Please take care of yourself